James Hillman used to say, the self isn't in community, the self is community. And in village life that we lived in for most of our time on the planet, however many hundreds of thousands of years, has always included multiple people besides just our birth parents.
Welcome to the Sacred Everything. I'm Travis Redtail, your host, and I've been asking, how do we heal society? How do we regain harmony with the planet? I'm inviting you to explore the practical and the pleasureful ways that we can transform ourselves, empower our communities, and catalyze a revolution of regenerative life in our neighborhoods and beyond. I'm interviewing folks from across the globe who are experts and pioneers making big changes in everything from our food system to mental health, from the circular economy to community singing. If you believe that a brighter future is possible, you're going to love the Sacred Everything. Welcome, Laurence Cole, to the Sacred Everything, a podcast where we are exploring technologies of belonging, how to retribe and revillage our lives with the potential outcome of making a dent in our crises around climate and equity. I'm so excited to be here in the Port Townsend Eco Village with you in your lovely home. Thank you for hosting me. What is alive in you today?
Well, what's alive is the opportunity to live in this beautiful place and to feel connected to this land and to be in the midst of a project that is like essentially giving birth. It feels like I'm always engaged when I'm making something beautiful to enhance the welcoming energy of our home. And so I'm creating a beautiful gate today, and that's for a new walkway towards our brand new common house. So that's what's alive in me today, is starting with a dip in the cold water with you in the very icy waters of the Salish Sea, and then continuing with this convivial day we've had, conversing over a beautiful breakfast by the sea, etc., and then working in the shop, which has just been a delicious and full day with its requisite nap. So now I'm ready.
Yeah, I had my requisite nap too, and I'm hearing that you have a lot of gratitude for the ability to contribute here in the Eco Village and to just contribute to the beauty of life in whoever you encounter throughout the day. And I like to open up the podcast, each episode, with a quote or with a proverb or with a prayer about this mission and this vision of turning every street in the world back into a village, with bringing belonging and love so close to home that it's more tangible, and when we feel safety and love and acceptance in our bones, no matter what's going on in our lives. So I'm going to pass it to you. Do you have something that comes to mind as a proverb, a prayer, a saying that is on that theme?
Well, what's rising in me is a quote from one of my core teachers, Sobonfu Somé, from Burkina Faso, West Africa. And she would say, the village is the place you go to be seen. And when we're talking about belonging, it's being seen as a unique, never before happened deliverer of a unique medicine. My teacher, Angelus Arian, said we are each original medicine. And so when we come into a world that welcomes us as a gift, then And it's the job of our people to help us remember the promise we made before we were born, because they know we came in fully loaded. We came in fully loaded with a gift, with medicine, with a unique presence that is ideal for the times we've come into. And so, as Martine Brechtel says about the Sutta Himalaya people, that they understand that everyone is hardwired with a longing to belong and a longing to be longed for. And that is the energy that when we come into village, we come into that kind of welcome. It's very different if you come into a world in which everybody perceives you as carrying original sin or depravity or however it's couched, and that you need to be fixed and disciplined into something that we want to have around, instead of coming in and being seen as this amazing gift that's never been here in exactly this way before. How can we help you remember who you are? And so there are rites of passage from early on, and initiations, and a whole sequence of understandings that what the original meaning of education is to lead forth the gift that you are, rather than stuff you with stuff so that you can earn a living, which from that perspective, the perspective I've been describing, is kind of, one of my teachers calls it the most obscene phrase in the English language. So if you're concerned about how we might return to the capacity to see each other as medicine, as brilliant and unique, never before seen gifts, and be part of a community that longs to know who you really are and what you're really carrying, then there's certain technologies of belonging that can be remedial for those of us that came into a culture that didn't quite stand in that particular viewpoint.
Yeah, and what I'm picking up is that we're almost all of us are born into that culture where the viewpoint is original sin. The viewpoint is discipline, maybe discipline first. And a lot of the teachings of my yoga teacher is traumas get inflicted when we have to suppress our emotions. You know, we're kids and we're basically told that having emotions is bad. And your core belonging, basically the teat of your mother, can be withheld if you are disruptive to a social norm. And so if that's the paradigm, you know, a traumatized millennia's worth of people, but the paradigm you're talking about is unlocking gifts and talents from a baby who's whole entering upon this plane.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And yeah, as Malidoma Somé would say, we all come in fully loaded. And so it's the job of our people to help us remember. And it's also to provide the kind of challenges that call forth all the facets and corners of what you're carrying, what you came in with, so you remember as the appropriate challenges, and the wisdom of the elders helps you find the kind of challenges that is that sometimes put how to find the right trouble to get into where your medicine really matters.
Yeah.
And so when that's the intention and deep purpose, is to grow an elder. Every child is an elder in training or in unfolding, we could say. And so that perspective has an inherent belonging that only deepens over time. And tragically, so much of what a city is about is putting a grid over the way nature actually works and the shapes that it takes, And, these grids in cities came about because of the need for crowd control. It's often called the Roman grid. At any rate, it's a setup for making sure you don't get too far out of hand with your creativity or with your activities. That we want to be able to make sure that we can rush quickly to whatever might be going on down there that we don't approve of. And that's just inherent in the structure of modern cities, and for the most part, unless they're ancient enough to be not overpowered by either many, many slaves or many, many energy slaves, which is what we currently make use of. So when habitations are part of a celebration of the landscape and of the living world and of the more than human world that inhabits with us, and that we engage in a kind of stewarding of that beautiful relationship, that all our relations matter in the place where we belong, not the place necessarily that we own, but the place that we are a belonging part that is cultured in the respect and good manners, you could say, towards the whole living community, because that's the natural way of a human heart, is to be concerned for the well-being of all one's relations. And so it's just culturing that through the ways that you're treated initially in exactly that spirit. And as you were saying, so that exactly what's true for you is mirrored and recognized. For instance, if you're cold, you're not left to cry it out. If you have a wet bottom, somebody's going to hear you screaming and come and attend to you. These early beliefs, because the first thing a newborn is interested in is this a good, safe place where my needs are going to be respected and met? And I won't be able to use verbal words, so I need people paying attention and intuiting what's happening for me, because I matter that much and my needs matter. And this is the early stages of establishing a sense of belonging. When those kinds of things don't happen and the initiations don't happen and so on, we're left to feel like, how do I really matter here? And how do I actually fit? I think the epidemic of loneliness that people speak of these days in our culture and in the cities of the world, people hardly knowing their neighbors and not feeling like a village where every new arrival and someone shows up, there's a shift in the force. Let's gather around and spend some time in silence and just feel the new energy that's here, and then find ways to celebrate that. It's sometimes it happens because it is basic to human nature. There's a continuum of expectations in every person. As I say, this hardwiring with the longing to belong and the longing to be longed for. But there's also, I love the book by Jean Liedloff, The Continuum Concept, where she talks about these things about how we handle the birth and the early childhood having such a critical part to play in the emergent sense of a person being a good, welcome thing that belongs and is recognized for exactly who they are. Sometimes when I'm talking about the shame that people carry, it often comes from this phrase I heard many, many years ago, that we are all raised in our culture to be somebody else, because often our exuberance, our sadness, our anger, even our great joy sometimes just doesn't seem to fit what's being expected. And so we begin to feel like, who I am, there's really not much room for me. So and I might start not liking myself. Children tend to do that, to have a kind of magical thinking. If my needs are not being met, or I'm not being fully seen and valued for who I am, then maybe I'm broken and I can't be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
What John Bradshaw used to call toxic shame.
Mm-hmm.
And when we grow up with that, it tends to isolate us, and also it's so painful that it can either morph into things like addictions and strange illnesses, or it can also morph into wanting to damage ourselves or damage others, and sometimes to demean and diminish and make other people feel small too and unwanted, sometimes referred to as shame dumping.
Mm-hmm.
So, which of course is only a very temporary fix, even as all addictions are, and there's behavioral addictions as well that come out of this kind of pain. And but it's a very temporary fix. And another thing about belonging is not having received what Alice Miller referred to as our narcissistic supplies, which are exactly what I was referring to earlier, where um, you need to have a community of people. It's very hard for just a single parent, or even just two parents, to meet and intuit and recognize and value the impulses and emotions and needs of a small person. And as Sabonfu would say, you think it, we say it takes a village to raise a child. We don't say that. We say it takes a village to keep the parents sane. And so it takes a community of people who are all together in welcoming in this child and recognizing that this child has many caring adults. Maladuma once said, it's like at least 40 pairs of eyes are uh, important for a young person to be celebrated in those eyes, and to recognize, wow, there's a lot of people who like me and want to spend time with me and help me learn how to do things like tie my shoes, or, whatever it is that you are helped along the way in your awkwardness or early learnings in a way that's loving and caring. And it isn't just up to one set of people or one person. There's so much. I know I used to do facilitate this program called Program for Early Parent Support, PEPs, Early Parent Support Program. And it was so wonderful for young parents to meet each other and have the opportunity to uh, tell their stories, express their concerns and their sense of isolation, and begin to make friends in an urban setting in such a way where they help each other out, and they have a larger babysitting pool, or just the company to come together and make maybe sing together and invite the children around to join in, and just create as many experiences of belonging that's larger than just one person trying to cover all those bases. And it's one of the great points of despair in our culture, that we keep hearing about how difficult it is for families to make ends meet and attend to the needs of the young. So the primal wound then becomes the break in belonging, and how that begins to be healed, to begin to create a sense that I do matter and that who I am is actually welcome and of value, then we need some sustained experiences in which we both heal the pain and the grief from the shaming that we've been carrying, but also begin to recognize that people do see us and recognize us as a valuable thing, and that we can extend value ourselves to others in a similar way. And we begin to feel what it's like to be a people. And James Hillman used to say, the self isn't in community, the self is community. And in village life that we lived in for most of our time on the planet, however many hundreds of thousands of years, has always included multiple people besides just our birth parents. And to really village in that way is to everyone essentially taking up the slack for the exhaustion of one parent or another. And then, of course, the siblings and the children of the village are also, they don't go to just single age schooling. They have this mix, and they also attend to and hold each other through their time. So I was saying, Jean Liedloff talks about this continuum of expectations, the first one being touch, that the skin is an expectation of touch, the lungs are an expectation of air. These two things are the most immediate. And of course, the tongue and taste is for the expectation of nourishment.
Laurence, you were giving us an incredible rundown of the source of our crisis of belonging, of all of the various wounds that have been inflicted by our cultural norms around, as you kind of call it, original sin, the traditions that can support a sense of belonging, of child rearing, and how a lot of the programming that goes into early childhood is actually a function of the parents not having the type of support that it takes to raise a child. And so it's like what I'm hearing you describe is the way down of belonging is the way that the child is parented. And the only reason that the way down of the belonging is inflicting wounds the way the child is parented is the way that the parents are supported within a non-tribal structure in a world that has more or less been built into isolated nuclear families without connectivity between neighbors. So we kind of left off there, and I want to pick up and let you keep going on the challenges here. And as to say, I think the viewers are going to want to hear what we can do about it too. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, because you are doing so much in your practice, in your life's work around creating opportunities for people to feel like they belong again. So I'll just pause for a second there.
Well, yes. To leave it as an individual dilemma, that when we feel bewildered about where we fit, where we belong, is there a place where I am as I am, who I am is really welcome? And there's so much of that these days, this longing to find a place where the ways I am, the inclinations that call me into a sense of authenticity, do I have a people that I can be with that welcome me as I am? As I was saying in the earlier session, the teachers that brought a lot of these technologies of belonging from within the village life of countless generations who are connected to place, to the world of nature, to the more than human world, to the spirit world. All of that is part of the community of belonging, and where essentially it's recognized, as Robin Wall Kimmerer puts it, that all flourishing is mutual. We need all the parts, all the beings, all the medicine, as it's sometimes put, all the unique ways of being individuals, but essentially as cells in a living organism that is so interdependent, and that your part in that really matters. And the more you play that part, the more fulfilled you will feel, because you're essentially designed, we've evolved, we were created to take pleasure in the well-being of all our relations. And so the ways that a child is welcomed into the world is as this new, surprising, fully loaded presence and package of never before seen in exactly this way, medicine, of creativity, of inclinations for giving, that we are longing for, longing to discover, and longing to welcome the full dignity of this particular life as it fits into the whole. And this is the expectation that we're hardwired to expect and to receive. So we, as it's put, we're hardwired with a longing to belong and a longing to be longed for. And our people are there to deliver on that expectation and that promise. You're bringing a promise into us that you made before you were born, to be exactly who you are in a way that nourishes all of us. So it's our job to help you remember that promise through the right kind of welcoming and recognizing that how you are and who you are is understood. And we will stand down on the ground with you and be under your reality in a supportive way. We understand who you are, and we're here to help you remember as we remember that we are all part of this greater than individual life, this multifaceted being that we are a part of in the place where we belong. And generally, the traditional ways for this way of being happened in villages where ownership and separate, the land did not belong to the people. Mm-hmm. The people belonged to the land. They spoke the land's language. That reflected in the cadences and sonorities the larger world, the living world of that surround. And so it was, the people I've spent time with speak of it as a gift. We were given this language so that we can worship here in this way, in this place that we belong to, that we were welcomed into, so that we could be part of sometimes it's called the caretaking, the tending of this place. It's not seen as a wild place, it's seen as a multi-dimensional, visible and invisible community of beings present for the mutual flourishing of all. And what is my part at this particular moment in time? That is maybe the mystery of timelessness, that is also a presence that I can yield and trust, because I've been trusted from the get-go to be the being that I am. So it's the welcoming of what is and having it mirrored back in these early days, in those early weeks and years, that sees us for what's going on. If we are angry, Oh, you're really angry. Oh, this is really frustrating for you. Yes. Oh my gosh, you really want to have a breakthrough here. Oh, whatever it is. Just, mirroring, reflecting. This is what is referred to as you getting your narcissistic supplies met in your early life so that you matter and you're seen and you're recognized. If this doesn't happen, it can leave a gnawing hunger for attention and for being gotten and special that until you can work through the grief of the loss of that early belonging and that early recognition that wasn't there, then you become what we call a narcissist, and it's a tragic and almost impenetrable style of being that's born out of a deep break in belonging. This primal wound, the break in belonging, leads to all kinds of dysfunctional patterns in the way we live in the world. And so it's very critical. Those early moments, those early hours and days and years, and the degree to which those narcissistic supplies are met through recognition of what's actually true for us in the moment, helps us pass through those moments without shame, so that things ultimately settle into a sense that I'm a good thing, I have things to feel, and I have things to offer, and I have my attention to give to others and welcome what's true for them, so that it becomes more of a mutual recognition, gladsomeness for being together society that has many, many, many eyes involved, many hearts, many hands. It takes a whole people to experience belonging. And if you have a whole culture that's designed on competition and getting belongings that are groovier and more flashy and more statusy than the others, then supposedly you win. But the fact is, you still stay isolated and alone and hungering for more attention and more belongings. There's never quite enough, because you can't fill the longing to belong with belongings. You need your people. Your greatest wealth will always be each other. And then when you have technologies that help you remember the bliss, the ecstasy, the extreme sense of a kind of magical well-being that can be generated through practices of ritual, of music, of grief tending, of holding witness for each other, and being also, there's one of my teachers says there's 4 healing salves. There's singing, there's dancing, there's storytelling, and there's silence. And each one of these, where we lose our sense of ease with any one of those, is where we start to move into dis-ease. We start to move, our well-being begins to unravel. And those things are not just isolated individual things. It's holding silence together. It's singing together. It's grieving together. It's whatever that can happen that builds a room for the many faces of presence and the sense of just being in a wholeness where all the parts matter and all are welcomed. When these things are part of your village life, then it can begin to, even in these days, begin to ameliorate that sense of isolation and loss and bewilderment. Where do I fit? Who am I really? And how the parts of me meaningful? When we say things are without meaning, we say, "Oh, that was a meaningless gesture." It means that we either didn't deliver any nourishment, or did we receive any nourishment from the encounter, from the interaction. It's all about food, spiritual food, physical food, all the different ways that we are fed or not fed is how we either thrive or diminish in our well-being. And there's so many ways to be a part of this feast that we call life, and to be part of the banquet of the giveaway, the great giveaway of nourishment, and the mutual obligation that we are all in true village. We have to accept that we live in obligation to everything else that lives, and that everything is alive. This is the sort of the default or normative state of consciousness of human beings for most of our time on the planet, the hundreds of thousands of years prior to the culture of make-believe that we don't need each other, that has become solidified into the ways of so-called modern life. And when I was a kid, everybody said, we humans, we only use 10% of our brains. It's like, well, what's the rest of the brain for? Why did it evolve? Was it just sort of a preemptive strike against something we're going to need someday? Or did we used to use it and we no longer use it anymore?
Right.
Been curious about it. And I think it takes a full presence to be completely alert and fully capable of honoring and respecting the whole tapestry of life that is community, the whole living world, then vastly more than just the human world, and certainly vastly more than just your individual, so-called individual self. So that's what you can recognize all over the place, is that in the midst of this unraveling that's happening on the planet, there's also lots of movements and lots of ways that people are connecting and having profoundly rich and bonding experience with, and experiencing the palpable, tangible, substantial sense of being a people, being a organism that has many cells in it, and that we are a welcome and worthy part of that presence that we can feel. It's why I do the work that I do, is that people come into that state of wonder and that state of gladsomeness that's really not possible in an isolated way. It is by being in the state of belonging. So I guess, I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say. I mean, it's possible to find our way to these kinds of experiences, because in the midst of the unraveling, if you know the yin-yang symbol, and there's, oh my God, when at the very widest part of one of those sometimes it's called the double fish pattern, there's a dot that carries the seeds of the opposite state of being. In this case, if we're moving towards a state of the fracturing of togetherness, there's also the seeds of togetherness forming at the same time and growing towards greater fullness. So it's just a matter of choosing consciously to be part of the building of that insurgency, the surge and flow of its opposite, and to take part in this in a full-hearted way. That doesn't make anyone wrong. It's just that you have to recognize that equilibrium is the nature of life's impulse, is to create balance and to create a fullness. And there's so many ways that is always the currents of that genius, that magnificent, impossibly diverse intelligence is present in all of us and in the very ground we walk upon, and is rising into us at all time when we develop the capacity for recognition, for recognition of where we are and what's present to support us in the process of becoming a conscious, alert, and respectful presence in community with the whole living world.
Wow. What a gift to have this whole spectrum of the challenge we face, married with the challenge we face, married with the explanation of how that challenge came to be, growing into an understanding of the role that belonging can play in healing the challenges, and then a pretty practical explanation of, we have these 4 ways of communing, and there's many, many more, but it's a whole anthropology that you've spelled out, Laurence, of why we get so much chaos in this world and why there's so much hurt in the human existence. And maybe not even why there's so much hurt, maybe that is part of human existence, but to explain that we're here to help each other through that hurt. And the more we suppress it, the more damage we keep doing, and the less that we're there for each other, and the more we normalize normalness, the worse off we're going to continue to be on this planet. And how sort of like what Charles Eisenstein says, is like belonging is a function of mutual obligation. It's not it is both a spiritual and an incredibly practical act. At some point, we all needed to help get the water. We all needed to help forage the food. And so by knowing that somebody has my back practically, and also when I'm at really the practicality of being a child and crying and knowing that there's 40 eyes on me to take care of my diaper, grows up to me feeling like I owe that back. And not just owe it back, but it's an honorable thing to give that back, to be one of the 40 sets of eyes on a child, and give to their well-being growing up. And there's this part of the podcast which is very, very deep and very anthropologically dissecting why. But I really want you to show us how it feels, Laurence. I really want, because you're a seriously groovy guy, and you're funny, and you make a lot of jokes too. And this very serious grounding, I think, is really important for folks who are not exposed to the idea of what belonging is and what it could be and how it could heal. And at the same time, I want to arm people, that's not the right verbiage. I want to provide people with tools to say, yes, I can go make a difference today. And the ways that I see you going and making a difference every day and enabling other leaders to do that is training them in grief tending, training them in song circle leading. And it sounds like you've facilitated all kinds of ways to highlight the belonging that people have within them already. So I'm curious to hear, you can list it off, you can say it off, you can sing it off. Like, what are these ways that you have facilitated this?
Well, I like the recognition that Charles Eisenstein speaks to, that everything is obligated to everything else. Everything matters. And it's that mattering is another way of speaking to belonging, that I matter, that there is an interdependence that I am part of. My needs will be met only by the living world and all my relations, and I am a part of that web of nourishment, and I am obligated to be paying attention, and to, first of all, the power of attention itself. I have a song that says, attention is the healer of separation. And just by holding full, compassionate, curious attention, what is it like for this tree to be itself, for this bird, for this person, for this stone, whatever, spending time being still enough and curious enough to give my attention, and particularly to another person. What is it like for you to be you right now and not need to fix it, correct it, advise it, distract it? Just be present to that one is one of the most immediate technologies of belonging. Because in your attention, in the giving of that attention, you allow someone to move more fully through what's actually calling them to move through. Because life is always in motion, always in a process of healing, restoring, coming into balance, coming into a greater sense of aliveness, or not. And the or not happens when it's interrupted. And so being a mirror, being a person who trusts that another being has that same capacity and that same obligation to bring attention and awareness into the picture that's at hand. That these things, when these mix and commingle, there is a sense of connection that is healed, that the break in belonging and the sense of separation can begin to melt. And that's a beautiful thing, and it's absolutely free, of course, as are pretty much all the major technologies of connection and belonging. So that, for instance, when you sing together without there being a star up on a stage with huge amounts more energy at their disposal in terms of technology and amplification and all the flashbang stuff, so that you're essentially overwhelmed with how incredibly potent and powerful they are. And, and it can be a kind of ecstatic experience, but it's qualitatively different from being on the level with each other and without amplification, making powerful sound because you are in it together. And most of our time on the planet, of course, we've only had electricity for, 150 years or so in any kind of usable form. So the power differential has not been that as extreme as it is now. And so pretty much the things that I bring to people are things that they can do with, they're fully loaded with everything they need from birth. You have your voice, you have your lungs, you have your heart, you have your spirit, you have all the ways of expressing and listening and collaborating and magnifying each other's expression. But it's one of the the great teachers of the last century is a man named Ivan Illich, who spoke to the experience of conviviality, which essentially means everyone being on the level with each other, sharing equally in the creative spirit of life. And that is, it moves, he said, top speed of a bicycle. For the most part, it's something that is generated at the speed that we naturally move in natural connection to the earth. And when we feel the currents in where we are present, and those currents can rise up in us and through us in ways that are shareable, and we begin to generate potent experience, whether it's holding each other in our grief, so that strong sound, big movement of emotion is welcomed and supported and recognized as absolutely essential, as part of the body's way of restoring equilibrium. Is when there's frozen grief, we either are going to do harm to ourselves or others unless we let it move and be witnessed and released in a full and welcoming and loving way. So that's one of the primary technologies of the belonging, which happens most powerfully in the kind of witnessing that can happen in what's called grief ritual. So it's one of the ways that I like to be part of this re-peopling of the human family, and the other, of course, singing and moving together, moving in the currents together. But all these things are totally free and totally built into our capabilities without a need for technological amplification of any sort. Mm-hmm. When we're on the level, we are in that pool of oneness, you can say, of just pure and perfect vibrational connectivity. Mm. And of course, that's much easier to engage in if you have not been shamed or punished or demeaned for some insufficiency. Oh, you can't sing. Oh, you're a terrible dancer. Oh, you can't. Men don't cry. Oh, no, you can't. Get a hold of yourself. You're falling apart. You're breaking down. You're all these things that you're disturbing our whatever. If there's things that are shut down, fester, and get frozen into twisted ways in the body mind, and so in order to feel fully freed and capable of interacting in a spontaneous, essentially unplanned, unrehearsed, you can there's not that you don't, that practice isn't important. You do your practice. So I consider it like that phrase, my cup runneth over. You have to fill the cup with practice, and then what runs over is something that's never happened before. And it's that's that overflowing that comes through the patience of practice and dedication to being present in the moment with those currents. As much as you can cultivate that quality of awareness, then what you bring to the present moment is this overflowing that is as much a surprise to you as it can be to anyone else. It's just like watching life express itself, because you've prepared the way, so to speak. You've done your practice as your invitation to spirit to come through in these surprising and delightful ways for the sake of each other's well-being. So this is a part of the process, and like I say, it's just available. It just is a part of how nature works, and we are very a natural part of nature. However much we've tried to fight the war with nature and subdue it and take dominion over the earth and all that sort of thing, it's not a good plan. And it's backfiring in really tragic ways these days. So it's good that we take a look at these things and start intending in a new direction, which is really the old direction of all the directions blending in a mysterious blend that's much greater and more efficacious than anything we can design. I would venture to say, even with artificial intelligence. So, I know that's blasphemy these days, but there you go.
Wow. Yeah, I irreverently, about halfway through what you were saying, I was like, when is he going to get to the singing stuff? But what I'm hearing your elder wisdom come through is like, this is regardless of what technology of belonging you're using to try to awaken the spirit that you are okay and you are safe in my hands, dear neighbor, dear kin. Like that's theoretically what we're aiming towards, right? Is a sense of okayness between people because we have each other's backs. And you have to prove that with practical things, and you have to feel that with emotional things. And the emotional, the reason why I was getting impatient is because I've never been to a grief training before, and I probably have never heard how much emphasis a teacher like you is putting on the fact that presence is the primary healer, and that presence comes through in song, it comes through in dance, it comes through in grief, but in fact it's sort of the seed medicine. And when I teach nonviolent communication, the number one practice that I teach is presence, is mirroring somebody. So that's what you were saying in the very beginning, and I'm feeling the gravity of that right now. I feel the gravity of that every day when I actually ask a cashier how their day is. And I stop and I actually listen to them, and there's some sort of weird break in the cosmic thread of superficiality, and they give me a funny look, and they're like, I'm okay. And I'm like, I'm hearing you're okay. And they're like, oh, why are you acting so weird? Why are you, like, and it's what I'm doing to you. It's what I do with every guest on the podcast. I just try to mirror before I throw in my own thoughts, because I want to hear you. I want you to feel heard, and you're an elder and you have people coming to you all the time trying to hear what you say. But as every human on earth deserves is this what you're saying? Did I hear you right? Before trying to go ahead and make my point and jump in line to be the person to say the thing next. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm taking away for whatever I'm going to write and do, and in programs that I build in the future, is that presence is the number one medicine. And in the course that I put together, How to Meet Our Needs Simply and Change the World, that's the second lesson, is mirroring. And in the first lesson we eye gaze, and never more an uncomfortable, vulnerable, or potent exercise have I ever had than taking two complete strangers and instructing them to seriously look into the depths of each other's souls through the eyes for 2 minutes straight. The reactions that you see from people are wild. Oftentimes it's really nervous giggling, but to me, that's almost like that's one of the easiest ways to demonstrate presence, is to set two people up and say, go on, it's only 2 minutes, and it feels like 10. And then you start to think, do I love this person? Do they love me? Are they, are they, is this sexual? Is this romantic? And like my chemistry, the first couple times that I did eye gazing in a context like that, was just confused. I mean, my chemistry and my body and my energies are so confused. What does this 2 minutes of eye contact mean, assigning meaning to it? And what I'm hearing you say is that the only meaning is like is that you belong and you're okay here. And wow, yeah, I'm feeling the gravity. I'm feeling almost an admonishment from the way that you're conveying that. It was like, we can talk about the fun stuff, but the serious medicine underneath this is presence. And so I really honor that. And yeah, I mean, I was just getting into a little presence practice, right? Eye gazing, and part of me, you know, I don't have as sophisticated a way as you do, or a seasoned way of saying like, this magic thing happens when we gather in a circle and we start singing, or we start grieving, or we sit in silence. It's this magic sauce. And almost regardless of any context, if folks wind up in a place and they do it for long enough, theoretically, they'll feel something. They'll feel something transcendental. And what I'm hearing you say is maybe folks actually need, for that transcendental moment to happen, they need to have an authentic presence. And I'm wondering, in your experience, let's say somebody who's listening to this podcast wants to host a singing night on their street. You know, this is like guerrilla love tactics on the streets everywhere. This is what I want. I want people to walk away with something to do. What could somebody who's never been to a song circle before, who maybe doesn't feel interbeing on a daily basis with other people, they don't feel witnessed, what can they do not only to start to unlock love in themselves, but bring that and knock on the door of their neighbor with a tin of muffins and say, hey, I want you to come over, you know, what night works for you this week? You want to come over and get convivial? What advice would you have for somebody who's really inspired and they just want to do something with their time and their energy to start to inspire belonging in themselves and others?
Well, this is happening. I would say, if you can find somewhere in your immediate world where such singing gatherings or grief-tending gatherings are happening, to go and experience, to get a sense of what this is about, how it works, how it feels. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to be pretty immersed into the ongoing energies of it, for having done it sufficiently to be able to then I'm thinking of this poem, and one of the lines is that usually one must enter into a friendship with a person who has experienced that great capacity themselves, then something may start to rub off on you of that true elegance. It's something that you know, this in that poem it was about. It's not easy to stop thinking ill of others. Usually one must enter into a friendship with a person who has accomplished that great feat, him or herself. Then something might start to rub off on you of that true elegance. So anyway, it's a little song. So I would say, have the experience. Go and spend time. It's something that spreads through experience, not through talking about it so much, but having the experience and then watching it burgeon in a natural way.
Yeah. Because
the energy of it has begun to inform you. That quality of information begins to be part of your being, and it's a living presence. That's part of the presence, is it gives form to an emergent possibility through, and it's energetic and it's experiential, and it passes along as nourishment passes through that mutual obligation that we're talking about. So it's beautiful to have the sense, I need to pass this along. But first of all, experience being part of the receiving of someone else's passing along. So learning to be yin to someone's yang, someone's creative surge coming forward, take that in, let it fill you, and then the return cycle can move. Is this making sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm about 500 words very shortly into an essay on inhaling and exhaling for this revolution, which is to say, this needs to be more relaxed than any revolution ever. And Osho's teachings are basically like, I don't want to kill your ego. I'm not here to kill anything but your ambition. Because ambition is what got us into this pickle in the first place, this need to accomplish. It's like, I'm so fired up in the climate revolution. I'm so fired up in the equity revolution. I must act and I must be effective and I must have results today. And what I'm hearing you say is that we can go slow. There's time. And in fact, if you want to go far, going together means you need to have a transmission of these codes of belonging first. You need to get the download before you go spreading it different places.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's probably my reason coming and visiting you, because I'm so new to this world of circle singing and grief that I know that I need a foundation before I start talking about it in any regularity and trying to transmit anything myself. So your advice is to seek out where people are gathering in song and in circle, and they have traditions of reverence and traditions of listening, mirroring and presence. And go where the presence at. Go find where your presence at and get down with the presence and stew in that. That's why I moved to Asheville. It's because I experience presence on the sidewalk. I experience presence with anything. I was walking back from some event, and there was a person who was houseless, and he was asking me for some money. He said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash right now." This, that, and the other. He goes, "It's okay." I said, "But how are you doing tonight?" And he accepted that I wanted to hear how he was doing. And we talked for 20 minutes, and it's like, I've seen a lot of scenarios where any conversation among two people on a street is just relegated to superficiality. And I feel like being in a city like Asheville is a place of really deep culturally ingrained presence around folks. And so I love that. And I love that the medicine that you say is the root medicine is this presence. I feel it when you're looking at me in the eyes. I feel it with the people that I choose to be around every day. When I say, I'm having a tough time, it's not like, I'm sorry, it'll be okay. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, I hear you're having a tough time. Yeah, and just have some permission to let out my inner baby that wants to cry a little bit and know that I'll be held in the moment. And I want you to sing us a song, Laurence. That's all this. You're so cool. You're so cool. You have so much depth, and you're so well studied around this anthropological universe of why belonging, but you're also just fun. And you know how to take what is this potent and sort of scary transformation of walking from, I would say, a world that's more or less raised on superficial engagement, bringing people into presence and making it loving and grandfatherly and I've never met an elder like you in my life, Laurence. I've never felt that I was given presence and somewhat of the level of respect that I would get from my peers simply because I am a human. And you give that to me. And I just want to honor you for that, for being the type of person that walks this earth respecting all beings as equal. And for showing me that maybe when I'm 80 years old, I can give that to somebody who maybe hasn't felt that in their life from somebody of your age, of your wisdom, of your gifts that you're giving to the world. So just want to see you and let you know that you've made a really big impact on me. And I know you've made an impact on a lot of people in this world.
Yeah, it reminds me of, when I first started practicing Tai Chi, the phrase that I heard was, it's all about returning to the state of the baby, of always feeling like you're fresh and new and are just beginning. And I thought, really? Well, that would be interesting. And it's really interesting that quite often, the first time you lead someone in a move in Tai Chi, they do it so beautifully, so perfectly. It's just like, there it is. And then they start practicing it. And it takes a long time for it to fall back into that state of the baby again. And so when you say these things about how I am, I just feel like I'm so grateful to be at this place where I feel, when I hear how you are and what you say, how you meet someone on the street, and you give so generously just your presence and your attention, and how I find the same thing. I love interacting in the co-op grocery line. I love connecting with people on the street or on the job or whatever it is, wherever, finding some way. And it's new for me in a way, to just be a permissionary for myself, to just be present in that kind of playful, surprising, open-hearted way. And I feel I learn it so much from younger people, from you, I see it all around, and it's like I'm moved in my own life to recognize that I'm just beginning, in a sense. I don't feel special in the sense of, I'm this grand old elder or whatever. I'm just this guy who fidgets with the table. My incessantly moving thumbs. Anyway, yeah, it's like, it's not, I don't feel, it's not true that I feel kind of empty in a way. I love the picture of this cartoon of the Dalai Lama opening a present for his birthday, and there's nothing in the box, and he's just like this great grin on his face. Oh, just what I've always wanted. Nothing. And it's like, get out of the way. Yeah, and then be as glad for what comes through as wherever its intended recipient might be. Is like, that's like we were talking today about, you are forgiven as you forgive, that you know what you're longing for as you give it. You know what that you are a being for being given. that we are all for giving, and it's like how the impediments to giving gradually get cleansed through in a lot of ways, through the grieving, through the mutual support for doing the healing that clears the passageways for the current of life to have its way, through the attention that you carry into the setting, and with that willingness to just say, oh yeah, this is a new encounter I've never had before with someone I've never seen, and it matters. They matter, and I matter. Let's have a moment of mattering, and you don't have to, as you say, it's not about fixing someone. That's what we're always saying in the grief ritual. We always say it's not about advice giving. It's not about fixing or rescuing. It's about extending the respect that everyone carries within them, the spirit, the unconquerable spirit of life. If it's welcomed and mirrored and reflected and just basically witnessed, that is being a permissionary that allows them to find their own strength, their own creativity, their own capacity to come through what's on their plate, to come through in a way, as they say, you can't, no one can do it for you, but you can't do it alone. And that's the power of community, of belonging, is recognize that we do need each other for the encouragement, the courage, which just simply means to stand by your heart. The French word for heart is, I believe, something like cœur, something. I don't speak French.
Yeah.
Cœur, yeah. But anyway.
Courage.
So it means.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So it means, standing by your heart, and being willing to take a stand for others' hearts, by just standing and being still, and having that courage to receive and to also be honest. The truth shall set you free. And the you that it's referring to is that the current of life that it will emerge increasingly in a natural, spontaneous way as you give yourself that permission to just offer presence, and in a non-forced, non-predetermined way, other than like you say, you can have practice. I do think practicing things like NVC or straight talk or any form of being present for someone else's reality, in a way that just lets them be where they are, allows just the attention, gives them the kind of the juice to come on through on their own and feel both supported and powerful from within. My teacher Angelis Arian said any time that we withhold from another because we've decided they can't handle the truth is arrogant and disrespectful, and doesn't recognize that the truth is liberating for all concerned. That straight talk is that holds that respect in a way that doesn't speak from above or below, but from straight across, in that mutual recognition that we all carry it all.
How many unsaid things are there for fear of hurting somebody's feelings? And that unsaid thing is like the suppressed childhood emotion that never got nurtured, and it's festering, and 66% divorce rate. And I really hear what you're saying. What about, I mean, to look at this idea of being a baby and coming into babiness again and again and again, and just being grateful for what comes, and carving and sort of recognizing the gifts that are abundantly flowing your way anyway. It is making me think like this is sort of the Taoist prerequisite to giving presents, right? Is to walking into the room without an agenda. You know, you can't sit down and give somebody your wholeness if you're trying to extract something from them. And I think to me, this problem is a little complicated in my mind, because many people are waking up to the fact that their behaviors are the product of traumas. And there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of presence or help in their lives. There's a lot of therapists that I've been to that I didn't feel had any presence for me whatsoever. You know, mechanical repetition of what I just said, as opposed to like, is that what you said? Is that what you're feeling? You know, sort of real reach into my soul and request of response and reflection. And this unraveling of the ego or the person's agenda with somebody to extract love, validation. Marshall Rosenberg says every action we take in the world is an attempt to meet a need. And so if we are so laden with trauma-based needs, it's hard for somebody to step out of their own way, turn into the baby, and go be there for someone else. And I guess I'm just speaking from my own experience. I don't know how hard it is for anybody else but me. But I'd say for the better part of 37 years, I was just waiting to get something from somebody. And even if it was a smile, even if it was something just to feel good, you know, about myself, or even to make them feel good, you know, and which could be some perverse way of making me feel good. But I don't think that I saw this pattern of having an agenda until very recently in my life. I was just trying to open myself to not extracting stuff from the planet, not extracting stuff from other people. And I think it's okay, right? I mean, our belonging is giving and receiving. This is interdependence. I am supposed to receive from you. But I feel that in the last, let's say, 2 years since I started practicing NVC, since I started opening myself to presence in conversation, I'm receiving things that I didn't expect. You know, instead of, well, I want this person to like me. And then I will make up some story that our conversation went well, and I walk away and I tell myself the story that they like me. Instead, I show up with full presence to Love Song, the singing festival in Asheville. And I meet you, and I have no agenda when we meet except to just give gratitude. You know, thank you, thank you, thank you. And lo and behold, months and months later, I'm here at the eco village that you live in, and sharing in this really beautiful exchange of wisdom. So I'm feeling the medicine that you're talking about. I'm feeling the medicine of being the baby, and how being the baby is sort of a prerequisite to presence. And then the presence is the prerequisite to having the fun songs and stuff, or the deep, deep cries. I cried deeper than I've ever cried in my entire life at your grief circle. And I got a lot of climate anxiety in me, a lot of I'm not doing enough for the planet in me. And when I was able to move that so much, I mean, this was in September, right? This was not a long time ago. So much space in my life has opened up to feel good about my creative endeavors. Like this, I started podcasting again because of that grief ritual, and basically getting something off my chest that maybe hadn't gone off my entire life, or had been accumulating for a decade or 2 decades. So this is the way my brain works. I like to systematize things. So I'm like, okay, yeah, the Taoist babiness helps unlock the presence, helps unlock the group awakening into belonging, basically. I mean, I feel like when I'm at my corporate job and I bring presence, the dynamic of an entire meeting changes. And maybe that's what I want to see, but I don't think it is. I think it's reflected to me in my yearly reviews. People are like, you just bring something and we can't really put our finger on it, but and it's that, I call it bringing humanity into the corporate world. Somebody will get on the phone and they'll say, okay, great. Yeah, I just want to cover 2 or 3 agenda items with you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take too much of your time. And I'll just throw the flag on the play. And I'll say, I don't know you. I don't know where you're from. And I want to know you. And you don't need to be efficient with me. You don't need to be efficient with me. I want to understand how I can help you the best right now. And all of a sudden, it was like the balloon pops with a needle and everything's deflated, and you just see like their skin get rosier and their hair is a little more glistening. It's like there's a different person on the other end of the Zoom call, once they've been given permission to just ask for something from you or just share what they want to share. So I'm feeling it more and more in my life, and Laurence, we're getting to time. We might be way over time, but you got to sing a song for us. You're gonna have to show us what it feels like, and maybe explain a little bit. Grief rituals they're very delicate and nuanced things, but these song circles, pretty much anybody can show up to a song circle and they'll get it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to explain what it is, what's the protocol, really factually, like what goes on there, and then show me a little bit about what it looks like.
Oh. Well, the protocol, I don't think of it much in terms of protocol. What's happened is many, many people now are finding that simple phrases, like one of my very earliest songs, I'm inspired by something I see from a teacher or a poet, or like I was just thinking a little while ago, this one of my teachers, Angelus Arian, said, the drum is the heartbeat of the mother. And it is primarily to remind us that we're being loved, that the mother is with you, just as if you were in the womb and you felt that heartbeat. And it was the recognition that nourishment and love and care, you are surrounded on all sides with love. And this is the primal expectation, even in the womb. So we're hardwired from the get-go to feel that belonging and that longing to be longed for, that there is the longing of the mother for you to come all the way through, and that's always happening your whole life long. And she would say the greatest remorse will be your gift, your love unexpressed. So it's all about everyone making sure that your love is about not just delivering your gift, but your attention, your presence to receive the gifts of others. And so I've incorporated that in multiple songs. There is a song from the Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer that sometimes I will lead at the beginning of a song gathering, because everybody's kind of hungry to make sure that I get my songs taught or I get whatever it is. And so she talks about the 3 sisters, the corn, the beans, the squash, and how they're this symbiosis. Again, it's all about mutual flourishing. And the teaching of the three sisters is bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others. Let's see. The respect one another, and respect, Angelus would say, is to look again, take a deeper look. Spectate or spectare means to look in Latin. So respect it, take a deeper look, see it again, see again who you're with in a deeper way. Respect one another, support one another. Bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others, and there will be enough for all. That all will flourish. Just this simple. So how do we respect one another, support one another, bring our gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others? But so it's a layered song. And it goes, respect one another, support one another, respect one another, support one another. Bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others. One another, bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others. Support one another, respect one another, support one another. Bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others.
Support one another.
Bring your gifts to the world and receive the gift of others.
Support one another.
And there will be enough for all, and there will be enough for all. Bring your gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others.
Support one another.
The gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others. Then at the end, everybody sings. And there will be enough for all. And then there's a grand. And there will be enough for all. And over with big harmonies and a great. So the whole notion that there can be enough for all, that we don't need a permanent underclass, that is not built into the way the living world works, and which is just, that is another description of the word justice. It's all just us, and there's enough for all if we pay attention and make sure that things get distributed where they need to go, because there are genuine needs, and when they are met, then there's peace. No justice, no peace. And until that becomes the recognition, the recognition again of how to live on this planet, we won't have peace. And we want peace. So we have to pay attention to where is the need, and let there be enough for all. I wrote that the night Donald Trump won the presidency. We have to, respect one another, support one another. Come on. Let's do this thing.
Well, many blessings to you, Laurence. Wow, I'm totally had no idea where we were going to go today on this journey, and to feel these layers of wisdom that you've crafted through all of the wisdom that you've accumulated and synthesized. I mean, you have such a synthetic mind, and to be able to give such a detailed and poetic and beautiful read on the challenges we face and ways out gives me so much hope. I'm like, I feel like there's actually an explanation for why I feel crazy so much when I'm at a grocery store and all those poor tomatoes are in plastic packaging. Look at my tomato brothers, and I'm like, don't worry, guys, I'm gonna get you out of there, you know. And to feel like not alone in this world around this stuff is crazy out there, and there's an explanation for why, and there's something that we can do about it. And so that's the kind of hope that your synthesis gives me and gives the people who are going to be listening to this. And I really just want to thank you so much for not just your time here today, but the time that you've devoted to unpacking and creating salves for the suffering and outlets for the joy, the beauty that we can all be painting with every word that we speak and every relation that we have and every breath that we take. So thanks for being that inspiration for me, Laurence.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Take care.